Guys, something surprising will happen to Yamoshi and it'll be named the new goddess of destruction. But it doesn't end because Goku will manage to find the legendary sword Excalibur. But for that, a new transformation will have to be activated. The true Super Saiyan God will appear. And you're gonna see all of this now, so give your like. Let's hit the goal of 3,000 likes. I'm counting on you. Anyway, once that's done, come with me. In the 7th universe. Currently on the planet Namek, it was possible to see that the planet where the Namekians lived, a real war was ongoing between Beerus, the god of destruction of the 7th universe, and the one who should be the most powerful in his universe, was on the ground without strength, completely defeated by the last being coming from another dimension. His name was Kyu, a humanoid being with the appearance of a fox. Kyu, after showing some of his true capabilities in that fight, he realized that Beerus, even having the title of God of Destruction, he was not that powerful, and because of that, he refused to believe that someone like Beerus had defeated his friends and family. After all, they were all powerful, not as much as him, but they all still had a power superior to Beerus, and that made Kyu uncomfortable. Kyu thought, "This power level of Beerus is too weak for him to have defeated my friends and family alone. Did he have any help? It's that Saiyan called Yamoshi. She's more powerful than Beerus. It was she who helped him. No, she never managed to leave this planet, or if not, Hiroki would have found her in the past. But anyways, that means Beerus had to have received help from someone else, or he had a hidden power. That, for some reason, he didn't show in our battle. But regardless of that, it's better for me to eliminate him at once and avenge my companions who are no longer with us," thought the fox while concentrating his energy on one of his hands, and then raising one of his hands, a sword of energy mixed with his blue flame ended up forming a key sword, and with that Kyu lowered his sword towards Beerus's neck. But inches away between the sword and the neck of Beerus, the sword ended up being stopped. Kyu thought, "No, ending him now would be boring, and it wouldn't be a good battle, where I could really have the honor of saying that I avenged my teammates. After all, they would want to see an exciting fight. And this fight was extremely boring and dull, so I'll have to wait for him to pass, recover, and become more powerful. And while that doesn't happen, I'll go after the other gods of destruction in search of avenging my other companions," thought the fox while looking at Beerus and feeling sorry for the pitiful state he was in. And because of that, the sword of flames that was in Kyu's hands ended up breaking into energy particles. Kyu said, "You're so weak that I even feel sorry for you. So even if I wish to end you today, I will let you live with this shame and humiliation. So if you want to get rid of this shame, become stronger to face it again in the future. And until that day comes, I will hunt down all your fellow gods of destruction, so you can feel the pain of losing a companion. And after I hunt you down, I will go after the Daishinken, so you better get strong soon. Or if not, it's all their fault ceasing to exist will be yours, and yours alone. Because you didn't do the job, as you should, Beerus, god of destruction of the 7th universe," said the fox after crouching down and holding Beerus's head, forcing him to face him, because even though Beerus was very hurt, he was still conscious enough to hear Kyu's words. Beerus thought, "That bastard. I have to get stronger. I need power. I need to get stronger," thought the god of destruction as he looked at Kyu and felt the great difference in power between the two. Kyu said, "I'll be waiting for our reunion, Beerus. Until then, he becomes more powerful to be able to provide me with a truly glorious battle, which will be remembered for ages, and which will leave our names engraved in history. Until then, become strong, god of destruction, and don't let me down," the fox said before throwing Beerus's body in the air, and then hit him with a kick, making him go against the ground, forming a small crater. Kyu thought, "It seems that Hiroki and Yamoshi stopped what they were doing to observe my fight against Beerus. If we can call that a fight I had with Beerus, because what happened here was just a humiliation and not a fight between the both of us," he thought as he looked in a certain direction and saw the two Saiyans looking in his direction, and with that the fox simply disappeared and reappeared beside Hiroki. Hiroki said, "I thought you were going to finish him. When Beerus said he eliminated all his family and friends, if he had to, he would do it again. Don't tell me you gained empathy for the god of destruction, or did you feel sorry for him?" Kyu said, "Ending him now in the state he would be in would be a boring thing in my opinion, and I'm not in the mood to end him now. My race has had enough honor to not attack the weak unless provoked. So I'm leaving him alive today so he can use the shame and humiliation I put him through as fuel to train and become stronger for me. After all, I want a good fight, and that's the only way I'll eliminate him. But if he doesn't train, I'll have to finish him off without a good fight. But I don't want that to happen. After all, it wouldn't be fun to crush someone weak, said the fox while looking at Hiroki, who just chuckled, hearing those words coming from Kyu's mouth. Hiroki spoke. Even if you're not a Saiyan, you talk and think like one, and that's fun. Because the way the two of us are getting along well, he said, before composing himself and looking to the side, seeing that Yamoshi was still there paralyzed. Kyu said, "We get along well because we both have common goals, and neither of us is weak. Now you better finish off what you came to do here so we can leave soon. I have to go to the other universes to look for my companions who are still alive, and hunt the gods of destruction. So solve your problem with your wife or ex-wife, I don't care, and let's go," said the fox while looking at the Saiyan, who just laughed a little more, and then started walking towards Yamoshi, who put himself in a combat posture. Hiroki, at a speed above the speed of light, advanced against Yamoshi, hitting her with a punch. But that blow had been defended by the ancestor of the Saiyans, who crossed her arms to defend herself from the blow that ended up throwing her back with a certain pain. But Yamoshi, upon seeing that, uncrossed his arms and advanced towards Hiroki. And as he approached Hiroki, she launched several attacks with punches and kicks, using a great level of strength and speed. But Hiroki was fast enough to dodge the blows, and proving that he was playing with her, Hiroki ended up letting Yamoshi land a kick that ended up hitting his abdomen, making him go backwards. But on Hiroki's face there was no sign of pain or irritation, and that made Yamoshi even more irritated. Yamoshi, even knowing that it could be useless, she shot several blasts of energy towards Hiroki, who just stood there receiving all the attacks that ended up self-destructing when they came into contact with his skin. But because of those energy attacks, he ended up making a big curtain of dust, which prevented Hiroki from seeing Yamoshi, and with that in mind, the ancestor of the Saiyans advanced towards Hiroki and tried to punch him. But even Hiroki not seeing the Saiyan's attack, Hiroki managed to lower his head, dodging Yamoshi's attack, and before Yamoshi could dodge, she ended up receiving a punch in the stomach, which made the Saiyan ancestor spit a little saliva. Then she fell to the ground with pain in her stomach, causing Yamoshi to return to his base form. Hiroki said, "It looks like you really can't be as powerful as you were in the past, Yamoshi. But don't worry, because today I'm going to finish you off, or something like that. Because this here is boring, since you don't have the slightest intention of killing me, and that's annoying in my view. After all, facing someone who doesn't want to fight is dull, just like Kyu said before. So I'll let you live for now," said the Saiyan while looking at his ex-wife on the floor, who raised her head just to stare at him. Hiroki said, "I might not eliminate you today, but I already know what we're going to do. I'm going to leave you and those people that you must like in peace for a few days. But after Q solves his problems, I'll come back and I'll finish you and all the beings on this planet. So either you start wanting to face me with the intention to kill, or all those beings you like will be eliminated," said the Saiyan, who placed his hand carefully on Yamoshi's face and brought his lips closer to Yamoshi's mouth, and that made the Saiyan's ancestor afraid and angry at the same time. Kukuan thought, "It seems that this Hiroki is more dangerous than I was thinking, but if I'm not mistaken, there's a certain weapon that can finish him off. Since he's an evil deity and this weapon can finish him off easily, since this weapon destroys everything that is evil," thought the Namekian, who was flying over the planet's clouds, while he thought, "Until we finally remember the name of the weapon." Kukuan thought, "If I remember correctly, the name of the weapon is Excalibur," thought the Namekian as he remembered the name of the sacred sword capable of destroying all that is evil for eternity. In the 7th universe. Currently in the 7th universe, being more precise on the planet Namek, it was possible to see that in one of the most distant places of the village, where Goku and Vegeta still passed out, with several injuries on the body, and beside him was Whis, who was being protected by a barrier, being that the angel had seen the complete battle of Kyu and Beerus, where Beerus was defeated and now he was thrown into a crater, with several injuries on his body and almost dead. But there were some remnants of the energy of destruction in his body that prevented him from dying. Whis thought, Lord Beerus was completely humiliated by Kyu, who just didn't eliminate him yet, because he didn't want to, and Lord Beerus is still alive just because of the power of the Hakai. That is preventing him from losing his life because of the lack of blood. I'd rather bring him here soon and try to heal him, or if not, he could have Squile, thought the angel before swinging his staff, making a golden light appear in front of him, and such light ended up surrounding Beerus' body. And suddenly Beerus he ended up disappearing and reappearing in front of Whis, who immediately used his divine power to heal him. But unfortunately for him, Whis' divine power ended up being useless when it came to healing those injuries. Whis thought, "My powers can't heal the wounds caused by the fox? It seems that those flames were left by the fox and Beerus' body. They have the ability to block the divine power of both creation and destruction. I have to find someone who can take care of Mr. Beerus. But I need to keep him safe, so he doesn't end up losing his life because of those wounds," thought the angel, surprised to see that his power couldn't heal the wounds that Mr. Beerus had on his body. And all that because of the blue flames that were on his body, Beerus' wounds. Beerus said, "This is useless, Whis. These flames have the ability to nullify the power of a deity, and we are both deities, and because of that, our power is nullified. So stop using your power on me. Use it on Goku and Vegeta," said the god of destruction weakly for not having enough power. Whis said, "I will do as ordered by Mr. Beerus," said the angel. Then taking his hands to the two Saiyans, and in a touch of magic, both Saiyans were completely healed by the divine power of Whis. After healing the two Saiyans that remained unconscious, Whis ended up looking at the barrier he had created and saw that Hiroki was standing in front of that barrier, looking at everyone inside the barrier. Hiroki spoke, "You must be the representative angel of the 7th universe, so I'll be direct. After I help Kyu get his revenge and gather the rest of his friends who are alive, we will go back and Kyu will fight Beerus again. And if he remains as weak as he is in his current state, he will lose his life. And if that happens, I'm going to help Kyu return to his dimension, and then I'm going to take the position of God of Destruction. And before you say that you already have an heir for the position of God of Destruction, which is the Saiyan on your left. But that's not a problem, because after Beerus is defeated, I defeat this Saiyan and officially become the new God of Destruction. So I want you to get ready. And you will teach me as my guide how to use the power of destruction as you serve me. In fact, how to control him, because mine is still a little unstable," said the Saiyan before making one of his fingers start to glow in a dark purple tone, and soon an energy arrow was shot by his finger, and that purple arrow of energy disintegrated everything that played, but ended up being stopped by a barrier that was protecting the village where Yuhiko was, but still large cracks ended up being formed in the barrier. All those who were still conscious and saw the attack made by Hakai by Hiroki, and everyone was shocked to see that Hiroki possessed the power of destruction that only the gods of destruction and the heirs of successors of the gods of destruction possesses, or should possess, and Hiroki did not have either. So the question on everyone's mind was, how did he have that power of destruction in his hand without having been trained by Whis or Beerus? Hiroki said, "Interesting, isn't it? No one can have the power of destruction without at least being trained by a god of destruction or an angel. And you must be wondering how I answer that in an easy way. Years ago, I found a place where an ancient god of destruction lived. And then I realized that my divine energy was not so different from the Hakai power. And in that place, over time, I ended up getting the power of destruction. But without the proper training, I don't know how to control it in a complete way. And as it is still incomplete and I need to train, so you will train me, Whis?" said the Saiyan, while facing Whis, who was still surprised by that. And his surprise only increased when hearing that he had managed to copy the destruction power from a god of destruction just by feeling the remnants of the energy of destruction. Kyu spoke, "You can learn the power of destruction at any time, more in the future, Hiroki. Now we have to go because I have scores to settle, and then we'll be back to finish up the loose ends," said the fox, appearing on top of the barrier while looking down, where Beerus was on the ground with his face turned to the sky, and the fox had good vision to see Beerus' destroyed face. Hiroki spoke, "You're very annoying, Kyu, but you're right. We're going to say goodbye for now, but in a few weeks or days, we're going to return. So I hope you guys strengthen up until then and give us a real fight. And besides, before I go, I want to do something," said the Saiyan before approaching Yamoshi. Yamoshi, when she saw Hiroki approaching her, she tried to punch him, but Hiroki held her fist easily, and before she tried to say anything, Hiroki pulled her close and kissed her intensely. But Yamoshi bit his tongue, making him move away from her, and then she slapped him hard enough to send him flying. Hiroki said, "See you later, my dear wife, and remember to stay strong, or if not, this planet together with all of them will be eliminated by my hands," said the Saiyan while looking at Yamoshi, and soon he and Kyu flew away from the place at high speed. Only when they both left the planet they saw Kukuan floating and watching everything that had happened. Kukuan said, "By the look of it, things worked out for you too. And by the looks of it, Yamoshi and Beerus were defeated by you two too. And I must say that it was a beautiful sight to see. After all, it's not often that I can see a fight between two divine beings," said the Black Namekian while looking at the two divine beings in front of him, who didn't like him, but he was useful to Hiroki and the fox. Hiroki spoke, "Things went well for us, but now we're going to solve some problems, so we're going. But you're going to stay here and watch over Yamoshi, and then you're going to let us know everything that happens during the time. And don't try to deceive us or I'll finish you off." He spoke while making his eyes glow in a dark purple tone in a dangerous way which made Kukuan shiver, but he managed to maintain cool. Kukuan said, "Don't worry, because I'll do what you told me. So rest assured, future god of destruction. Now if you allow me, I have to go. After all, if I don't go now, the god of destruction will end up dying. And I know healing techniques, which will be easy to cure him. So I say goodbye to the two of you," said the Namekian before leaving the room, location, and go to the place where Yamoshi and the rest of the group were. Yamoshi said, "What are you doing here? Don't tell me you're working with Hiroki." She spoke to the ancestor of the Saiyans as he stood up and faced the Namekian who was a stalker, who was extremely in love with her. Kukuan said, "Yamoshi, don't yell at me like that. It's really good to talk to you again and so close," said the Namekian before grabbing Yamoshi's breasts, but then he ended up getting a slap on his face. Kukuan said, I don't work for him. The only thing I did was stay alive and discover some things about Hiroki's life. And I know a way to defeat Hiroki, because there is a weapon that is capable of destroying any evil being. And as far as I know, Hiroki is an evil being because of his evil divine energy. So this weapon is literally his weak point, and maybe the only thing that can defeat him is this weapon," said the Namekian while looking at Yamoshi with a look of passion for a person who ended up widening his eyes, and hearing that, Whis ended up remembering something. Whis said, "Excalibur, this is the name of a weapon created by my father millennia ago to defeat the evil beings that existed at that time. And it is the only weapon that cannot be destroyed, but can cut everything, especially beings with evil energy. But it was lost millennia ago here in the 7th universe, and nobody knows where it is," said the angel while carrying Beerus on his back, and Goku and Vegeta were beside him, already awake but in pain with their bodies. Kukuan said, "That's funny, because I know where it is, and I know how you can get it, and especially who will be able to use it," said the Namekian with a big smile on his face as he looked at everyone present who were surprised, except Beerus, who passed out. In the 7th universe. Currently in the 7th universe, more precisely in Yuhiko's house, it was possible to see several people inside the village elder's house. All those present had fought or witnessed the battle of Beerus against Kyu and Yamoshi against Hiroki. The winners of the battles were Kyu and Hiroki. Almost everyone was at the Namek elder's house to hear the news that Yuhiko had about his village. Yuhiko also wanted to know how Kukuan knew about this weapon called Excalibur. Beerus was not in the old woman's house because he had been very injured in the fight against Kyu. The god of destruction was in one of the rooms, still very injured and tired, but he was not at risk of his life because the power of Whis could keep Beerus alive for a while longer if he stayed still without making any physical effort. Beerus obviously couldn't enter any combat because if he entered, anyone could defeat him with a single blow. Even Bulma could defeat Beerus in that current state. In the living room where everyone was, it was possible to see that some were eating because they had lost a lot of energy during the battle, and others were not doing anything. The atmosphere of the place was heavy because Kukuan had revealed that he knew the location of a weapon that could destroy Hiroki. Whis said, "How do you know about Excalibur, and especially how do you know its location? Excalibur was a weapon created by my father, and not even we angels have been able to locate this weapon for the past millennia. So how do you know about Excalibur?" asked the angel, completely intrigued by the fact that a mere mortal knew about a sacred weapon that had been lost for millennia ago. Kukuan spoke. "It wasn't very difficult, actually. I'm a warrior who likes to explore space, to search of learning more about everything, especially about martial arts. And at one of the planets I went to, I ended up meeting Master Swordsman, who told about the legend of the holy sword Excalibur," said the Namekian while looking at Anjo, and then to Yamoshi and Yuhiko. Kukuan said, As far as I remember, the legend said that in the past there were several evil beings scattered throughout the seventh universe, and with that, one of the Kaioshins of the time ended up going to a planet composed of completely dark water, and in that water it was not possible to see any light in that place. There was a weapon called Excalibur, and this Kaioshin ended up being worthy enough to use this sacred weapon, and in the middle of the dark lake a great golden light appeared. And then a sword that emitted such pure power that could light up the dark world appeared, said the Namekian while remembering the way he had heard the story of the legendary sword. Kukuan said, according to what that guy said, this Kaioshin ended up using Excalibur to eliminate all evil beings. But this Kaioshin ended up being very injured, and because of those injuries, he ended up perishing. But before that happened, he used his power and he separated the sword into fragments and sent them to all sides of the seven universe to prevent any evil being from trying to corrupt the sword. Because during the fight with those evil beings, the sword was almost corrupted by those beings. And to prevent that from happening, the Kaioshin divided the sword. If the sword was resembled, any corrupted fragment would be automatically purified, said the Namekian while looking at those present, who, when they heard that Excalibur was the weapon that could end Hiroki, was fragmented, were surprised and shocked at the same time. Yamoshi said, if Excalibur, the sacred sword that can defeat Hiroki, is fragmented, how are we going to use it? Said the Saiyan's ancestor angrily. After all, if Excalibur would be the weapon they should use to defeat Hiroki, how would they use it if it was fragmented? That was what was going through the minds of Yamoshi and the others present. Yuiko said, that's true, Kukuan. How would we be able to use Excalibur if it's fragmented? And how would we find all the fragments of that sacred weapon before Hiroki and Kiyu returned and destroyed the entire planet, along with all the inhabitants of our village? Asked the village elder, who was leaning against the wall in a corner of the place and stared at Kukuan the whole time. Kukuan spoke. Before continuing with the questions, why don't you let me finish telling the story? I know where the fragments are, and I also know a way to gather all the fragments, using only one of them, without the need to find or pick up other fragments, said the Namekian with a face of boredom and slight irritation. After all, he was already being criticized by the two women without even having finished talking, and that made Yamoshi and Yuiko feel ashamed for being scolded, especially for Yuiko because she's the highest authority and she never gets scolded in that village, and there aren't many people who would challenge her orders, since Yamoshi was more used to that. Kukuan said, I know where the handle of Excalibur is located, and with it, it is possible to gather all the fragments of Excalibur. But for that, Excalibur itself must accept someone as its new master, and that master must have powers and divine energy. And not only that, but he must also have a good heart. As far as I know, the handle of the original Excalibur was used to create a new Excalibur with drastically weakened power. But still the sword is capable of cutting anything that exists on the planet. And its former wielder, other than the Kaioshin, was a member of the human race called Arthur Pendragon, who was one of the kings of that world who used the power of Excalibur and was capable of great deeds, said the Namekian while revealing some things about Excalibur and how to recover all its fragments without the need to go behind all other fragments. Among all those present in the place, Vegeta, upon hearing such words, was the only one who spoke up, and Whis had noticed this and immediately looked at the Prince of Saiyans, and then questioned Vegeta. Whis said, Master Vegeta, by any chance do you know this Arthur Pendragon? Because you got a strange expression when you heard that name. So do you know him, or do you know the location of Excalibur's handle? Asked the angel while looking at the Prince of Saiyans, who thought a little before answering his question. Vegeta said, No, I never got to see this man called Arthur Pendragon, but I know what planet he lived on. Arthur Pendragon was one of the ancient kings of planet Earth, who ended up becoming a legend along with his legendary sword Excalibur. When you said the king's name, I remember that Bulma liked to tell his story to Trunks, who liked to pretend to be King Arthur. I usually ignored that and stayed in the training room, since it didn't make sense to me, said the Prince of Saiyans while looking at the angel, and then at Kukuan, who gave a slight laugh at that. Whis said, Well then, we just have to go to planet Earth, and go to the place where King Arthur's coffin is, and take Excalibur, and if it isn't there, we'll go to some museum where the sword must be. After all, it's a legendary weapon, and humans like to expose things like that, said the angel as he looked at everyone and looked after he got up to go to the planet Earth. Kukulkan said, "You can go, but I guarantee you'll not find Excalibur, not the real Excalibur, in any museum or in that king's tomb. But you can go and do whatever you like. And you don't need to worry about that god of destruction called Beerus, because unlike the angel, I can heal his wounds. So go on. I'll do you a favor to take care of the god of destruction," said the Namekian, looking at the angel before facing him and sighing, because just looking at the face of the Namekian, Whis already knew that Kukulkan wanted something. Whis said, "What do you want to cure, Mr. Beerus? Just by looking at you, I can tell you're not going to do this for free. Tell me what you want to take care of, Mr. Beerus," asked the angel to the Namekian, who raised one of his hands to his chin in a thoughtful way, but soon spoke. Kukulkan said, "You will owe me a favor, and besides that, I want you to train me in the future. But now, I'll take care of the god of destruction, and you'll find out what I'm saying about Excalibur, whether it's true or not. After all, I'm sure Yamoshi and Yuiko won't trust me, so I'll be waiting for you here," said the Namekian before getting up and going to the room where Beerus was. When he got there, Kukulkan started taking care of Beerus' wounds using one of his power. In the 7th universe. Currently, the 7th universe, more precisely in Yuhiko's residence, it was possible to see that the only one who were still in the place were Yuhiko, Kukulkan, and Beerus. The god of destruction was in a bed, passed out with several injuries on his body. Most of these injuries were already being healed. The most serious one, that had been caused by Hiroki, was already almost completely healed, but it gave indications that it would end up leaving a scar, since the wound in Beerus' abdomen that was caused by Kyu had left a small scar, so the chances of that wound caused by Hiroki leaving a scar on Beerus' body were pretty high, and it wouldn't be a simple scar like the one caused by Kyu. In the other room, along with Beerus and Kukulkan, Yamoshi sat in the corner of the room, facing the Namekian and the god of destruction. The Saiyan was not willing to stay in the same room with the man who confessed his love for her, and who several times tried to touch her. In her body, or on several occasions, Kukulkan succeeded, and whenever that happened, he ended up receiving a blow well given by the ancestor of the Saiyans, Yamoshi, who really liked to flirt with several men, but Kukulkan was one of the few that she did not feel even the slightest desire to flirt with. Yamoshi didn't like being around him, and even if Kukulkan was the last man in the universe, the ancestor of the Saiyans wouldn't have the slightest interest in him. And that was something that Yamoshi made a point of making very clear to Kukulkan. Yamoshi thought, "I have no idea what that pervert Kukulkan is thinking, but I'm sure he's not going to give away the location of Excalibur's handle for free. And even with the favor he's going to receive from Whis and Beerus, he still owes wanting something more. After all, this favor Kukulkan will win for saving Beerus' life, but Excalibur is something completely different. Kukulkan will want something, and just thinking about it makes me worry about what will happen. And I'm sure that what he's going to ask for will be something related to me. And just thinking about that makes me angry, because coming from that worm, I know it's not going to be a good thing. And I'm going to have to do what Kukulkan wants to get information from Excalibur, and finish off Hiroki once and for all. And what Kukulkan is going to ask, it shouldn't be so bad if we compare everything that Hiroki might end up forcing me to do in the future," thought the ancestor of the Saiyans while looking at Kukulkan, thinking of some things he could ask Yamoshi to do, so that he would reveal the location of Excalibur's handle, because the ancestor of the Saiyans was already sure that the true handle of Excalibur was neither in King Arthur's tomb nor even in a museum. So whether or not she would have to obey Kukulkan's wishes for her friends to discover Excalibur's location. Yamoshi watched Kukulkan heal Beerus for long minutes, until Beerus' body was completely healed by Kukulkan. Yet Beerus' closed wounds ended up becoming scars. The wound created by Hiroki was the biggest scar that Beerus currently had on his body. But besides her, there were a few more small ones, like the one Kyu had created, when he made a cut in Beerus' abdomen, which coincidentally was the last attack Kyu had made before defeating Beerus hours ago. Kukulkan said, "Well, I did everything I could to heal all his injuries, but Beerus had some injuries that were too big, so those bigger ones ended up becoming scars. But that won't be a problem. After all, having a scar is not something as bad as some think, and it will even improve Beerus' look, which we agree is not very intimidating. So the scars will do him good," said the Namekian while looking at Beerus' body, and all that Kukulkan said was in a tone mocking the face of the god of destruction who was passed out on the bed. Even though he was healed, Beerus still had his energy at 0, and would not be able to wake up for some time. Yamoshi said, Alright, you already did what you promised to do, which was to heal Beerus, and scars are just after effects that you weren't able to heal completely. So what do you want in exchange for the location of Excalibur's cable? You and I aren't close, much less a best friends, and I know you're not going to give out Excalibur's location information for free. So just say what you want right away so I can think better about the situation and your wishes, because with all certainty you want something in exchange for the location of Excalibur's handle," asked the ancestor of the Saiyan, with a cold and calm tone at the same time, and when hearing that Kukulkan gave a slight laugh. After all, the ancestor of the Saiyan seemed to know Kukulkan much better than he was imagining. Kukulkan said, "Wow, it seems that our last few years together and my attempts to win you over and have you as my wife made you learn a few things about me. And one of them is that I don't do anything for free. But how about we talk in the living room, or in another room if you prefer? I don't want to talk near the God of Destruction. It'd be kind of strange to talk here," said the Namekian as he approached and looked at Yamoshi. Yamoshi said, "Okay, let's go to the living room, and there we can talk a little," said the Saiyan ancestor while looking at the Namekian, who just accepted and followed Yamoshi to the living room. And when they got there, they sat both on the sofa. Yamoshi said, "Now say at once what you want in exchange for Excalibur's location," Yamoshi said while looking at Kukulkan, who soon answered. Kukulkan said, "Well, I'm going to tell you where Excalibur's cable is located. But for that I want 3 things first. I want you to go back to wearing those clothes you were wearing before you fought Beerus. I also want you to kiss me in front of all your friends, including Yuhiko. And after that I want you to ask me for forgiveness for all the times you rejected and humiliate me. And you will have to do it all in front of all these villagers. And you will also have to accept marrying me," said the Namekian with an arrogant smile on his face as he looked at Yamoshi, who upon hearing that, the ancestor of the Saiyans wanted to finish off Kukulkan, but she controlled her own anger. Yamoshi said, "Okay, I accept your proposal. I'll change," said the ancestor of the Saiyans, soon leaving the place and going to one of the rooms. And after a few seconds she returned to the living room, already with her clothes changed. Kukulkan spoke. "It seems that you are more beautiful up close than from afar, my beautiful future wife. Now how about we do the second part of our agreement, because your friends are already returning with Yuhiko. And when will we do the third part?" Kukulkan said as he approached Yamoshi, started stroking her face, something she clearly wasn't enjoying, but was endearing for the sake of her friends, and to put an end to Hiroki. Yamoshi said, "I'll apologize to you and accept getting married only when Excalibur is already in our hands. Until then, we won't be engaged or anything else like that. After all, you could be lying about Excalibur. And if you're lying, I'll end it with you, and I will not leave a single molecule of your existence in this world," said the Saiyan ancestor with an intense red glow in her eyes, showing the seriousness in her words, something that made Kukulkan feel a slight fear, but he managed to control himself and not show that he was afraid of Yamoshi. Kukulkan said, "Don't worry, because I'm not lying about Excalibur. And now I want to taste my bride's lips," said the Namekian, looking at the ancestor of the Saiyans, and even hesitating, Yamoshi Kukulkan started kissing, and in a few seconds the door was opened, revealing Whis, Goku, Vegeta, and Yuhiko. The village elder, upon seeing that, almost screamed in surprise, but contained herself, and Yamoshi, realizing the presence of all, separated from Kukulkan. Yamoshi said, "From your faces I would say that you don't know where the Excalibur cable is. So tell us where the Excalibur cable is, Kukulkan," said the ancestor of the Saiyans with her back to the group, because she didn't have the courage to look at them at the moment. Kukulkan said, "Look, as far as I know, the hilt of the legendary sword Excalibur is at the bottom of the sea, but you can find that place easily because there's a small island in the middle of the sea, and under the island is the sword Excalibur. But only beings who possess divine powers and pure heart can remove it from the spot," said the Namekian while looking at everyone present, and soon one of them remembered something. Goku said, "A small island in the middle of the sea? I know where that is. That's Master Roshi's island," said the Saiyan, already knowing where the place of Excalibur would be. In the 7th universe. Currently in the 7th universe, more precisely in Yuhiko's house, it was possible to see Whis, Yuhiko, Goku, Vegeta, Yamoshi, and Kukulkan together in the place. Everyone was surprised to hear that Goku knew the location of the handle of the Excalibur sword, that by what Kukulkan had spoken was on planet Earth, on an island in the middle of the sea. And by coincidence, Goku knew very well where it was. After all, this island was one of the places where Goku had trained with Master Roshi, the man who had taught Goku to use the Kamehameha in the past when the Saiyan was still a young child. Whis said, "Is the Excalibur sword on Master Roshi's island? Well, judging by the description of the place, it seems to be there. And I remember once feeling a strange energy coming from below that island. At the time, the divine energy I was feeling was very weak, so I thought it was just a simple divine artifact given to humans by some very ancient deity. And as this artifact was under the sea, I thought it would be the trident of the god of the seas, Poseidon," said the angel, while remembering that he had already felt a divine energy coming from somewhere underneath the island where Kami lived. But that energy was so weak that it couldn't be something important. That's what the angel thought at the time. Vegeta said, "Poseidon? Are you talking about Poseidon, the god of the seas, and one of the most powerful gods in the Greek-Roman pantheon?" asked the Prince of the Saiyans while looking at the angel, full of surprise. Whis said, "Exactly. Humans already worshipped these gods in the past, but at that time they were really alive and lived among humans, but because of a war called Ragnaroks, they ended up being eliminated, and with that their artifacts and weapons ended up spreading across the planet. And as I said before, I thought that divine power I felt was from the trident of Poseidon, but in reality, it was not from the trident, but from Excalibur's sword," said the angel while remembering the time when he met some of the divine beings who lived among the mortals on planet Earth. Kukulkan said, "It doesn't matter if some beings were divine and existed on the planet called Earth in the past. What matters now is for you to recover the Excalibur sword, and then take the other fragments of it so that you can defeat Hiroki at once," said the Namekian while looking for everyone present, making everyone pay attention back to the original goal, which was to get Excalibur and remove all its fragments in order to face and defeat Hiroki once and for all. Whis said, "Now the big question, who will use Excalibur? Because no one here knows how to use a sword, and from what has been said, only someone with a pure heart can use the sacred sword. So we have three options. In that case, Mr. Goku, Mr. Vegeta, or Yamoshi, who have pure hearts, enough to use Excalibur. In fact, Miss Yuiko also has it, but she can't leave the village to get the sword, so it's not an option at the moment," said the angel while looking at the three Saiyans present in that place, who began to look around. Yamoshi said, "This will only be between Goku and Vegeta, because Hiroki will notice if I suddenly get one of the Excalibur shards, because I'm pretty sure he knows about the Holy Sword, and I believe Hiroki must have one of the shards of Excalibur. So when Goku or Vegeta pulls out this Holy Sword and unites it with all the other fragments, Hiroki will know that the Excalibur sword is back, and I'm sure he'll go after the current user of it. And if he thinks that I'm the current holder of the sword, he could get very angry, and for sure he could destroy the planet completely, along with all those who live on it," said the ancestor of the Saiyans before sighing heavily because Yamoshi thought that Hiroki already had a fragment of Excalibur, which probably should have been corrupted because of Hiroki's evil power. Whis said, "That's true, but in addition to the Excalibur problem, I'm worried about the position of Mr. Beerus, since he's badly injured and will not be able to act as the god of destruction of the 7th universe. And from the information I received, it seems that some of the survivors of the beings who came from the same dimension as Kyu managed to open a portal to their world, and with that they managed to bring more warriors from their home world, and these warriors are invading all universes. We will need our god of destruction to defeat them all, and this will be a big problem. Because unfortunately, I am an angel, I cannot face these warriors from another dimension, because of the rules created by my father, preventing me from fighting someone, even though they are from another dimension," said the angel while looking at everyone who was present there, and ended up being surprised by the news. But everyone was more surprised to hear Beerus' voice in the place. Beerus said, "I won't let that happen. I don't have all my power, but I can easily face those beings from the other dimension," said the god of destruction when he arrived at the place with a large part of his body bandaged, preventing everyone from seeing his scars. Goku said, "Mr. Beerus, you should be sleeping and resting right now since you're still weak," said the Saiyan, surprised by the fact that Beerus was awake and looking at everyone at that moment. Beerus spoke, "I'm well enough to deal with these vermin that are coming from another dimension," said the god of destruction while looking at Whis, who was looking with a certain concern at his god of destruction. Yamoshi said, "Since it's like that, then I'm going to take the position of god of destruction temporarily. After all, Beerus is only like that because he got involved in my personal problems," said the ancestor of the Saiyans, surprising everyone, especially Beerus, who didn't like that. Beerus said, "Not at all. I knew you were after my god of destruction position, and I won't hand it over so easily to you," said the god of destruction, very irritated with the ancestor of the Saiyans. But even against his will, Whis extended his staff towards Yamoshi, and suddenly her clothes were replaced by the clothes of a god of destruction that ended up being very revealing in Yamoshi's body. Whis said, "At the moment, we're not in a position to choose who should be the current god of destruction. Yamoshi will temporarily be the goddess of destruction of the 7th universe until Mr. Beerus is in a position to return to that. During that time, Yamoshi will have to go after and face all the beings coming from another dimension, and that is not debatable at the moment," said the angel in a firm tone, which looked at Beerus, who just turned his face with an expression of anger. Yuiko said, "Now that you finished this pointless discussion, it would be good if you went right after the Excalibur sword, so that you can put a definitive end to that monster. And you better go soon, because the faster you go, the faster you will return to finish off Hiroki," said the Namekian elder, as soon as she looked at everyone present. Vegeta said, "Yuiko's right, so let's go to Master Roshi's house soon, so we can get the Excalibur sword," said the Prince of Saiyans while looking at Whis, who understood the message. The angel approached the two Saiyans, and then they disappeared in a golden light on planet Earth. After leaving the village where Yamoshi and Yuhiko lived, Goku, Vegeta, and Whis went to Earth. There, the Saiyans and the angel went to Master Roshi's house, and when they arrived at the place, they realized that Master Roshi wasn't there in reality. There was no one on that island. Whis said, "Looks like there's no one here, so let's go right after the sword. I will go first, and I will try to remove Excalibur, and then I will leave it to one of you two. So wait for me here," said the angel before entering the water and going towards the holy sword. And now it was several kilometers below the sea. It would be very complicated for Goku or Vegeta to stay there. But when Whis arrived at the place where the sword was, the angel tried to remove the sword that was stuck in the ground. But Whis could not remove the sword, and with that he returned to the place where Goku and Vegeta were. Whis said, "I wasn't able to remove Excalibur from the place, so you two will have to go down there. But at the depths it's too great. You'll have to use these diving suits," said the angel, holding two similar diving suits, the clothes that were used to train with Whis when they first met. And without hesitation, both Saiyans put on the clothes and entered the sea. Goku and Vegeta, using their energies, managed to reach the place where Excalibur was. And when they arrived, Vegeta took the front and tried to withdraw the sword, and remembering Kukuon's words, Vegeta transformed into his Super Saiyan God form. But even so, he couldn't pull the sword out of the ground, even using all his strength. Goku, seeing that Vegeta was unable to remove Excalibur from the ground, he took its place and also transformed into Super Saiyan God. And using all his strength, Goku tried to remove the sword from the place, but his strength was not enough. At that moment, Goku began to release such a large amount of energy that it began to make the surrounding water become hot and evaporate upon contact with the surface of Goku's suit. And with an explosion of energy, Goku's suit ended up destroying itself, and the sword that was previously struck in the ground ended up being removed. And at the moment, Vegeta ended up scarring to see that Goku was different because his costume had been destroyed, and his body had a large amount of white hair, and even the tail of a Saiyan that Goku had lost for years had returned, leaving Vegeta in shock. The one in front of everyone was the true Super Saiyan God transformation. With that, we end today's video. If you want to see the continuation of this incredible story, leave a lot of likes in the video and comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you another day, guys!